Jeff is a hardworking, smart, handsome guy. Goes to church on Sundays, even volunteers at the nursing home where his grandma lives. He's been dating Sarah for a couple of years, and he can't imagine his life without her. Sarah is this amazing young woman. She's kind, caring, compassionate, the kind of person that can be having an awful day and still wants to know how you're doing. She works at a daycare center and loves being around children. Her employer has seen her dedication with the children and has decided to sponsor her toward getting her teacher's certification. She is so excited about what her future may hold, but I tell you, there's one big problem. She needs to have reliable transportation this winter, and boy, she sure doesn't. There's no way her junker of a car is going to make it, and she doesn't have the money to replace it. She doesn't know what she'll do if she loses this job. You see, her employers told her they can't have any employee, even their best employee, if that person can't get to work. Jeff, knowing what's at stake for her, went out and scraped together every penny that he has and bought her a truck. And not just any truck. This is the truck of her dreams. A big, beautiful green Toyota Tundra, 4-wheel drive, 1,000,000 airbags, heated leather seats, the works. Green is her favorite color. He just knows when she comes home and sees this big, beautiful truck in the driveway, how excited she's going to be. How many of you wouldn't want a guy like Jeff, right? But what if I told you that when Jeff gave Sarah the truck, they were already broken up? That Sarah had told him that she didn't want to talk to him again? How many of you might still be rooting for Jeff? Okay, maybe a little. So when Sarah saw the truck, she wasn't overjoyed. In fact, she had this sick feeling in the pit of her stomach. I know this because I worked at the domestic violence shelter where Sarah lived. She told me that Jeff was great at making big apologies after he'd abused her. The first time he forbade her from going out with her friends, he took her to Taos for a long weekend to make it up to her. The time when he came home drunk and forced her to have sex with him, he said it would never happen again. Bought her jewelry, apologized profusely, even went to AA for 3 months. And the first time he slapped her, he looked so shocked that he'd done it. He broke down crying, told her she was the only woman he'd ever love, and proposed marriage. You see, Jeff was good at big apologies, at flattery, at gifts. And from what Sarah told me, that was really the reason she'd stayed with him as long as she had. Not because of fear, but because he had this incredible ability to make her feel hope that things could change, that she could change him, that after all the awful things he'd done to her, that he still loved her. So when Sarah saw that truck, she knew what it was. It was she could take the keys, she could own the truck, but Jeff would always be in the driver's seat. Who wants a guy like Jeff now? Right? No, thank you. So let's talk about this green truck for a second. It's a prime example of what I call enticement. You see, people can turn up or down the heat in their relationships to get what they want. And it's sad and wrong and dangerous that almost all of us have only been taught to look for those ways that people turn up the heat. The screaming, the hitting, the throwing things. These are ways for people to turn up the heat, to get what they want. But it's only half the story. Think about this. If you went on a first date with someone and they hit you, would there be date number 2? Heck no, right? You call the cops, you'd hit them back, you'd take off running, something. But you're not going on that second date. There is more to abusive relationships than just the kinds of abuse we've been taught to look for. In fact, abuse can be disguised. Abusive people can also turn down the heat. They can be kind and thoughtful and loving and generous, affectionate. And sometimes these behaviors are genuine, and sometimes they are nothing more than a manipulation. Think back to Sarah and Jeff. What was the more effective tool that Jeff used to keep Sarah under his thumb? Was it the controlling and violent behaviors that he displayed, or the ways that he made up for them? Was it the slap or the truck that he delivered that got him what he wanted? And I tell you, in my mind, it's both. They work together. One is the stick and the other the carrot. One burns and the other soothes. One is a hammer and the other the glue. And together, they can form a relationship that really traps people. 10 years ago when I first started working with people who had been abused, they told me about enticement. They didn't call it enticement, but they would say, Kristin, you know what? He's not always bad. In fact, sometimes he's amazing. Like in the beginning of our relationship, oh my gosh, it was great. Or after he hurt me, he would really try to make up for it. Or that time I told him I was going to leave him, boy, did he shape up. And at that time, I was young and naive, and I didn't get it. I didn't get the relevance of what they were telling me. So I would encourage them to really focus with me in this short amount of time we had together to look at those more obvious dangerous behaviors that their partner was displaying. I would say, does he own a gun? Is he going to pick your kids up from school? Has he made threats to kill you? Does he know what your schedule looks like? And you know what? These are important questions to ask and to plan for, but they're not the only ones. Now, when my clients come to me and they tell me about the flattery, the gifts, the promises to change, the bouquet of roses and the trip to Cancun, I'm all ears. And I encourage them to think about how these behaviors, again, may be a manipulation. And that a well-phrased apology can be just as dangerous as a slap to them ever finding a future free of abuse. And after my clients take a minute to think about this, they really agree. Something else that they always told me was that the emotional abuse hurts the most. More than the bruises or the broken bones or the black eye, the emotional abuse that couldn't get him out of their head. And now that I understand enticement, I see why. Because he is not only their batterer, their jailer, their punisher, the person who causes them pain and brings them low, but he is also their lover and their savior, the person who can take that pain away, who knows their heart's deepest wish and can fulfill it. This may surprise you, but Sarah did go back to Jeff. She took the keys that day because in her mind she thought about it and she thought rolling the dice with Jeff in this new truck made a heck of a lot more sense than the 100% chance that if she didn't, she would lose her job and her chance at her dream. Jeff, true to form, the first month, kind, loving, generous, followed through on all his promises. By month number 2, he's falling back into his old behaviors. And by the end of month number 2, he's worse than he's ever been. One night, he starts an argument with her, takes her cell phone, goes out, takes the starter out of the new truck, and drives off in his own car, leaves her stranded in her home on the side of a mountain in the dead of winter. Sarah lost her good job, lost that chance at her dream, but she didn't lose her life. And after that event, she never went back to Jeff. Sarah and I learned something important from Jeff. we learned that the true definition of abuse is anyone who would silence you or take your power, your self-respect, your dignity, your voice, your freedom, or your truth, no matter if they do it with their fist or with a brand new green truck.